Penguin Random House Audio presents The First and Last King of Haiti. The Rise and Fall of Henri Christophe by Marlene L. Daut. Read for you by Donal Eliver. But what surprised T. Noel most was the discovery that this marvelous world, the like of which the French governors of the Cap had never known, was a world of Negroes. Alejo Carpentier, the kingdom of this world. They say in Haiti, atop the tall mountain, 3,000 feet above the sea, the ghost of King Henri Christophe walks again in the lonely hills of his citadel like a distraught Hamlet, retracing the steps that took him from the stables of Saint-Domingue to the top of the mountains as king. Retracing his steps to find which mistake brought him death, which step in the long climb to the kingdom was unwise, miscalculated, misjudged. Richard Durham, Black Hamlet. Author's note on terminology. King Henri spelled his name with a Y. However, many Christophe chroniclers, both in Haiti and abroad, especially those who wrote in the 20th century, used the more common French spelling Henri with an I. This biography uses the correct historical spelling of Henri with a Y when referring to the Haitian king, except for when directly quoting. In a less clear-cut vein, in the 19th century, Haiti was frequently spelled both inside and outside the country with a Y, as in IT. While I have naturally reverted to the contemporary spelling, in direct quotations and titles, I have made the decision to leave the historical spelling intact. I have adopted the same method for the colony of Saint-Domingue, French spelling, which was frequently called Santo Domingo, or San Domingo, or sometimes Saint Domingo, in both English and Spanish language sources, and sometimes in German and Italian language texts as well. In the body of the text, I consistently refer to Saint-Domingue, but I have not changed source references or titles. Readers and listeners both will also note that I spelled Toussaint Louverture's name the way he spelled it, without an apostrophe. But many 18th and 19th century chroniclers and writers spelled his name L'Ouverture, a practice adopted by some 20th century and contemporary authors. I also spell the names of other revolutionary figures the way they sign their names, as in the cases of Jacques Maurepas, spelled Morpas, written by others at times as Maurepas. Charles Belair, written also as Belair with an accent aigu. And Moise, spelled Moyse, sometimes written as Moise, with an umlaut over the I. Finally, more difficult was deciding what to do about the plethora of French titles, both for nobility, such as counts and dukes, and for published texts and other documents. For the former, I have decided to leave these words in their original format, that is, the Duc de la Marmelade, or the Comte de Rosier, instead of the Duke of Marmalade and the Count of Rosier, because I find them close enough to English not to be distracting or confusing. While for the latter, I've opted for most titles to translate them into English in the body of the text, but in all cases to leave the source documents in their original French in the source notes. This is a biography about a man who lived on at least 2 Caribbean islands, which themselves bounced back and forth between French, Spanish, and British control, who was transported in between to English-speaking Georgia during the American Revolutionary War, and whose wife lived in England and then Italy after his death. It is an appropriately polyglot story that spans from the Caribbean archipelago to British North America to the European continent. Encountering non-English language words is thus a necessary part of the journey, just as it was part of King Henri's. Prologue. King Henri's Drama. On April 14, 1936, 20-year-old Orson Welles directed his first major play. The production was an adaptation of William Shakespeare's Macbeth with an all-black cast. Debuting in Harlem's storied Lafayette Theater on 7th Avenue at 132nd Street, the play sold out every one of its 1,223 seats. 10 blocks on either side of the theater had to be shut down due to the overwhelming crowds, and a police escort was required to lead the ticketed through the throng. The play went on to enjoy a 64-performance run before touring the country with its astounding 110 cast members. Though Wells is perhaps most remembered for directing and starring in the 1941 film Citizen Kane, which earned 9 Academy Award nominations, it was his sensational and black Macbeth that first made him a star. In the original Macbeth, the title character kills the King of Scotland so that he can become the reigning monarch. As king, Shakespeare's Macbeth meets a tragic end when civil war erupts and his rival Macduff beheads him. It was not the fictional Macbeth's death, however, that so attracted Harlem theatergoers. Inspired by the life of Haiti's first and only king, the formerly enslaved General Henri Christophe of Haitian revolutionary fame, Wells set his Macbeth in the early 19th century kingdom of Haiti rather than Shakespeare's original medieval Scotland, and most of the play's action took place within the backdrop of a large stone castle meant to replicate more King Henri's famous palace of Sans-Souci than Macbeth's royal Dunsinane. Erected in the early 1810s, Sans-Souci, meaning without worry in French, is located in the tiny hamlet of Milo, Haiti, just south of the northern coastal city of Cap-Haïtien. Partially destroyed by a magnitude 8.1 earthquake in 1842, today the palace doubles as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, along with King Henri's enormous fortified castle, the Citadelle La Ferrière. Called the Citadelle Henri in the King's day, Christophe's famous fort, which survived the deadly quake, sits atop one of Haiti's highest mountain peaks, peering all the way out to the Atlantic Ocean. Deemed the largest fortress in North America and widely hailed as the 8th wonder of the world, the Citadelle is also the location of King Henri's grave. Like Macbeth, King Henri met his tragic end when a civil war broke out and the aristocracy turned against him. Yet, unlike Macbeth, King Henri took his own life. In many respects, Christophe lived more the life of a Shakespearean anti-hero than the bard could ever have conjured. Born to an enslaved mother on the British-claimed island of Grenada before his 12th birthday, Christophe found himself in North America participating in the American Revolutionary War. Trudging through the swamps of Georgia, he suffered a wound to the leg while French forces fought the British at the Battle of Savannah on October 9, 1779. By the 1780s, Christophe was still living a life of precarity, but now he was on the French-claimed island of Saint-Domingue, which had the reputation at the time of being the cruelest and richest slave colony in the Caribbean. First visited by Christopher Columbus in 1492, the island was renamed La Isla Española, Hispaniola, by the Spanish, who subsequently decimated the native population and instituted a plantation society based on enslaved African labor. The French formally took over the western side of the island in 1697, per the Treaty of Ryswick, and renamed it Saint-Domingue. Saint-Domingue quickly became France's most prized overseas possession, producing more sugar, coffee, cotton, and indigo than any other colony in the world. Employed at a hotel in the colony's most bustling city, Cap Français, later Cap Haïtien, young Christophe witnessed the constant comings and goings of the slave ships that by 1791 had transported more than 1.3 million Africans from the continent to toil in soul-crushing conditions. He also had a front-row seat to conversations about rights of citizenship for the colony's tens of thousands of free men of color, many of whom were also enslavers. French slave codes initially allowed white men to marry African women after converting them to Catholicism, thereby granting the latter free status. The generations of children that resulted from these unions became known as the gens de couleur libre, or free people of color. Determined to preserve some semblance of division between the free people of color, descendants of enslaved African women and white male French colonists, the French passed a series of ordinances depriving free black people and their mixed-race counterparts of equal rights, including access to the colony's schools and pensions. Some free black families consequently sent their male children to France to be educated. In France, many of these free men of color witnessed the tumultuous storming of the Bastille prison in July 1789 and watched with hope as the revolutionary rhetoric of liberty, equality, and fraternity eventually led the French populace to overturn monarchical rule. In August 1789,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?